Okay, I think we're ready to get going. Can you hear me okay without the mic? Is this good? Great, because I don't like the mic. My name is Jeff McClellan. I am the Director of Publications and Graphics here at BYU, and I'm grateful to be here and talking to you today. In the last couple of years, my title has changed, and I've learned a new word, and that word is branding. I used to be I was the editor of BYU Magazine for many years, and I never thought about branding, and now suddenly I have to think about branding. So I'm part of a group of people that help deal with university branding issues now. And so I've learned a lot about branding. And I want to share a few of those things with you today and talk about how that affects some of the work you do and how we can help you in that and so on. But to start off, I'm going to show a few images on screen. And if you have a pen or a pencil, if you could write down, as these images come up, the first maybe 3 words that come to mind as you see each of these images. Or if you don't, just think about them, whatever. But jot these down and then we'll discuss it in a minute. And we'll just watch these images. Okay, so look at your list, if you wrote things down, or think about your list if it's just in your head, and what influenced the words that you put down for those brands that we saw on screen? Where did those come from? Yeah.
So, for the McDonald's one, you heard someone kind of do one of their jingles, and some of the other ones, like Ford Tough, you think of commercials and things that they're trying to get across in those advertising. And the surprising thing is I couldn't come up with anything for BYU's. I couldn't think of a word or two that I would out of that, which I thought was interesting.
He's a plant.
What's that?
He's a plant.
He's a plant. Yeah.
As you looked at those logos, it brought back all your past experience with each of those companies.
Good. So marketing influences it, other experiences, just any experience? Okay, good. What else? Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Someone's just even with the colors. Some were bright, made me feel brighter, happier, and darker.
Sure.
Types of colors.
All right. How many of the words you wrote down were emotions? Did anybody write down emotions? It made you feel emotions, probably, whether you wrote them down or not. There's a lot of power in these images, and they communicate a lot of things that comes from a lot of different sources. One of the first things that I learned as I started learning about branding, which is probably was a no-brainer, but it was new to me, and that is a brand is not a logo. A brand is much more than a logo. The logo is powerful in communicating what the brand represents, but the brand is really, it's much more than that. It's the reputation, it's the perception that people have about the brand, and as such, it is influenced by every interaction someone has with the brand. When I was first learning about this, I went and met with a marketing guy here in the Tanner building, and I said, tell me about branding, because I know nothing. And he talked about Walmart, and he said, what do you think of when you think of Walmart? I started sharing the thoughts and feelings. He said, what influences that? And I started thinking about the last time I was shopping at Walmart, right? It's not just their advertising, it's the people I interact with there. It's the way the store looks. It's my experience pushing a cart across the parking lot. All those things affect my perception of the Walmart brand. So this reputation is much, much broader than the logo, although the logo can represent that and communicate it in a powerful way. So I want to illustrate this with an experience I had about a year ago. I'm on a professional association board for the Western United States, and we hosted the board here at BYU for meetings last fall. And as we invited them in, we had about 20 people coming from California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and they all flew in. We met them in Salt Lake and took them to the Roof restaurant for dinner. And if you've been to the Roof, it's a great restaurant, great food, and they have a really nice buffet. And at the end of the buffet, they have this really great dessert spread, and it was amazing. And they just loved dinner. It was great. We brought them back here. They stayed in the hotel in Provo. The next morning, we got them up. We brought them here to the Hinckley Center, and as they walked into the room, at every place there was agendas and things like that, and there was also a bag of Cougar Crunch sitting there at their place. And throughout the day, they started nibbling on the Cougar Crunch, and they began to love Cougar Crunch. For lunch that day, we took them to the Sky Room, also a really great buffet, and of course, a really great dessert spread also. And they loved the creamery ice cream that they had there at the Sky Room. And we kept talking about that. I was amazed how much they kept talking about how good that ice cream was. The next day before they left, we gave them each a box of BYU fudge. This was all completely unintentional, but all this started happening, and as I was driving people back to the airport, they kept talking about all the desserts that we had given them and how good they were, and I realized that we had created an expectation unintentionally about what BYU represents. We'd created an expectation for them that BYU equals food. It equals sugar, right? This is what we'd call a brand promise. All of those people now have that in their minds, and if you interact with them, they're going to expect food from you. So just beware. If you interact with those people, you have to bring sugar because they're going to want it. That is the brand promise now we created, unintentionally again, through our interactions with them. That's the kind of influence that we can have through very unintentional sorts of things. As we talk about branding, there's this idea of a brand promise. There's also something that we call the brand position. Who owns the brand position? What's your thought on that? Anybody? Who owns the brand position? Okay, well, I'll just tell you. The brand position is owned by the consumer. Because, again, the brand is the reputation. It's the perception. So we as the brand, we are BYU, we are the brand. We can't own that because it lives in the hearts and mind of the people, right? My perception of Walmart doesn't own that. My perception is mine, and it's that reputation. And then you take a group of people, and our collective opinion is that reputation. So the brand position is owned by the consumer, by the audience. Then there's what we call the brand positioning, and that's what the brand owns. So we, as the brand, try to influence the brand position through our positioning efforts. So that's our brand strategy, right? That's all the things we try to do to make the consumer think about us the way we want them to think about us. The hard thing is we are not the only people trying to influence them, or that do influence them. As with my experience at Walmart, all sorts of things influence the way I feel about Walmart. Not just Walmart corporate, right? Or all sorts of things influence our friends on this board, their perception of BYU. Not just the core message of BYU, but our giving them treats influence their perception. So we have what we call brand influencers, and all these influences are people who, or things that they interact with. In the case of BYU, it might be watching a BYU sports event. It might be your neighbor who's an alum, or your cousin who's a student, or whatever, and your interactions with them affect your perception of the BYU brand. So if all those different influences are saying different things about the BYU brand, then you have a lot of different perceptions going on in the hearts of those people. That then reflects back on BYU. As again in the case of the candy, those people now expect candy when they come to BYU, right? And so as we all influence the perception there, that affects us, and it affects our ability to do our work, really. The reputation of the university affects our effectiveness as a university in accomplishing our mission. So what we'd really like to do is affect all those influencers. So ideally, they're all sharing the same message, right? They're not all different colors. They're all BYU blue, right? And they all influence in the same way. Therefore, we can more effectively accomplish what we want to accomplish. That's the ideal world. It's never going to happen. But we want to get as close as we can to that. So that's where we start thinking about our strategy, our brand strategy. So these are some of the things that we think about with the brand strategy. What are we really trying to accomplish? We're trying to communicate the mission of the university. We want the perception that's in the hearts and minds of people to be what the mission of the university is. We want them to know us as a place of faith, of intellect, of character, those kinds of things we talk about in the mission statement of the university. We want to build support for that mission through those efforts. And eventually, this line comes from the last line of the mission statement, to greatly enlarge the university's influence in a world we wish to improve. Really, we want the university to have a greater influence in the world around us. And as we all strengthen the BYU brand, it can do that. It can have a stronger influence. So key principles in doing that are consistency, and that's why we talk a lot about branding. The more you use, so when we think back to the logos, the more you use the same logo with the same message, the more that logo communicates that message to people, right? So that repetition, that consistency is important. Same thing with color and all those other things that go into what we think of as a visual brand. Authenticity is really important too, and this gets into some of the messages, right? People really quickly detect an inauthentic message. So we can't be saying something that doesn't resonate with reality. We can't be saying BYU students are honest if they're not honest, because people will very quickly see that that's not true. So we want to be authentic, and we want to be consistent, and we want to be excellent, because BYU is known for excellence. Our mission statement says we have an environment of excellence. So everything we do should be excellent. We should be consistent in our messaging and authentic. The benefits of this is it reinforces the BYU brand again, so it has a greater influence. But it also reinforces all of our sub-brands. So before I had my job, I was the editor of BYU Magazine. BYU Magazine has an influence on the brand, right? Because it's communicating about BYU to a lot of people. But that brand also influences BYU Magazine. So if the brand is strong, it helps BYU Magazine succeed. If BYU Magazine succeeds, it helps the brand be strong, and there's this cycle that goes on. The same thing is true for all of us. So if I am at BYU Magazine doing a good job, that helps someone in the humanities program because the BYU brand is stronger. And if they're doing a good job, it helps me, right? So as we all do a great job of building the brand, it helps all of us in our efforts to communicate, to build relationships, and to express the university's mission to our audiences. So that's our branding strategy. And that's why it's so important that we talk about some of these guidelines and principles and how we communicate effectively to accomplish those goals. Now we can do a little bit of a quiz. This is a branding quiz. And you can write on a piece of paper or just do it in your head or whatever, but keep track of your points. There are 5 questions. Question number 1. Here we are. Question number 1. Which of these is a correct treatment of this BYU motto? How do you punctuate the BYU motto? And what is the correct answer? Who knows? C is incorrect. It would be A. A is correct. That semicolon there is important. Okay, question number 2. What is the hex code for BYU Blues? And you, of all people, should know this. What was that? B? Yeah. B is correct. Very good. And if you said D, you are very wrong, because that is the hex code for University of Utah Ranch. So don't go there. B is the one we want. Okay, how about this one? Which of the following are official BYU typefaces?
All of the above.
What was that?
All of the above.
All of them. Anybody want to take issue with that? All of them is correct, actually. Requiem is the main typeface that we use to complement the institutional logos. It's the serif typeface. Vitesse is the typeface we use in the more collegiate athletic marks. And then Whitney and Sentinel are 2 fonts that we've purchased for use in the templates. So those are available to everybody who's using the templates. They're incorporated into the templates. So yes, all 4 of these are official typefaces. If you got all 4 correct, you get 4 points. Very good. Question number 4. Which of these logos is not currently approved logo? Logos change from time to time, so it's a tricky question. What do you think? Anybody? I hear the cougar head.
Yeah.
That is correct. That one is not approved. That was approved until about 2 years ago, and then we replaced it with the new cougar head, the sailor hat cougar. If you've seen that one, that is the new approved cougar head, because nobody liked that cougar head, so we got rid of it. And the last question. What are appropriate photo editing practices? And this you might not think of as a branding thing, but it's part of the guidelines of how we communicate.
It seems like ethically C would always be.
Right. C is always correct. You can always change red to blue.
Well, in their hearts, you know.
Right. Okay, all of them are correct except for B. So, because the other, so in an ad, there's a lot more freedom to change things in a photo because it's a promotional item, right? A portrait, again, you can correct things that are minor embellishment or minor embarrassing conditions. So somebody's got a facial blemish or their hair's flying widely. You can fix those kind of things in a portrait because, again, it's not necessarily a news photo, it's a portrait. But a news action shot, it should reflect reality, and especially we don't want to be correcting things to bring them in line with the honor code because that, again, is not authentic, right? And you can certainly adjust lighting. Okay, so if you've calculated your scores, here's what that means for you. I hope none of you are in that top category. So now you're probably wondering, how on earth was I supposed to know the answers to those kinds of questions? Those are some pretty picky questions. And that is a very good question that you're asking. Here is how you know the answers to those questions. It's not easy. There are several different websites that have the answers to those questions right now, and some of those answers are on no website. You would have to be inside my brain or inside someone else's brain to know the answers to some of these questions. This is the problem we are trying to solve. So BYU, all of us on the brand team, we have not been on the same page, very literally, and that is an approved version of the word literally. We have several different web pages trying to communicate about brand things, and we're not always saying the same thing about what BYU Blue is. We're not always saying the same thing about what our messages are. So our objective over the last year or so, we've been talking about creating a new brand site called brand.byu.edu. Our objectives, first, is to build one happy home for all these resources to exist. So that you go one place and you can get all this information, not 5 places. In addition, we want to articulate what our strategy is, because that's not really laid out anywhere. We want to publish guidelines that we've never published before, so that you know what they are. And then some of the guidelines simply need some updating, and so we're hoping that through this process we can update some. One that we've been working on that our office is responsible for is the editorial style guide, which has been woefully out of date. So we've been updating that as part of this process. So that's all part of what we've been trying to do. And we've just built the first, I guess I should clarify, the brand site, we are not trying to, we're creating the brand site to be a host for all these guidelines. Our office is not necessarily responsible for creating those guidelines, but we're creating a place where all those guidelines can exist. So we are working with a lot of other people, with the web community, with the trademarks people and other people on campus to say, let's put all these things together in one place, but we're not dictating what the strategy is. That's an important point. We're working with others to figure out what that strategy should be. So we've been building the site. It is almost ready for launch. We're waiting approval on some of the content, but I can give you a little bit of a preview. Oops. Here we go. So this is what the site looks like today. There are 3 main areas to the site. The strategy, if you go in here, you'll get a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about what the brand really is, what it's based on. Its foundations are the mission statement, the aims, those kinds of things is how we articulate really what our brand is, what our brand promise is. Attributes, this is one of the things that needs to be approved. I just made this up one night. Nobody's looked at this yet, so just pretend you didn't see that. And then positioning, and this is some of the strategy, again, that we talked about, the consistency, the authenticity, those kind of things. This is all the strategy that underlies that. I anticipate most people won't look at these pages. I wish they would. But most people, I think, are going to go right to this guidelines portion where you can get the logos. So if you go into logos, you'll be able to see all the different marks. So we have what we call the institutional logos. So these are things that tend to be more appropriate in academic environments. You can download them straight from these pages. If you click on one, you log in, and then you can download them. Maybe I'll just do that. Oh, sorry. I wonder if it won't work for me. There we go. So it brings up options for what kind of file you want, and it gives you the minimum width and so on. And you can download those files. So all the different files there. The collegiate marks, again, which are the more athletic sorts of things, but we want them to be used in more than just athletic circumstances. So there's that sailor hat cougar we were talking about. So all the different logo options are here, with a little bit of guidelines about each one, how you should use it, when you should use it, those kind of things. And then there's some usage guidelines that talk through things like do not alter the logos. And that's something I guess that would be important for all of us to be aware of. We shouldn't be changing them. Yes?
We had to request ones that aren't there. We need one that's not there.
Yes, yeah. If you need a variation on one that's not available, you can request it. There's some that we might say, sorry, we can't do that one. But there are some that we can create different variations on as needed. And in the past, the site didn't include logos with transparent backgrounds. That will be a part of this version, so you won't have to create that variation. But so as we talked about do not altering, one of the ones that people do alter a lot would like them not to is the stretch Y logo, the oval one, this one, should always have the oval with it. Some people like to take that Y out without the oval and would like that to always have the oval retained as part of the mark. You can see other guidelines on here, and I won't go through them all, but you can read those. I guess another one that I think there's often misunderstanding about is the symbols. People think you have to use the TM or the R all the time. You don't. You need to use those on merchandise sorts of things. But if you're putting it on a web page, if you're putting it on a printed document or whatever, you can take off the R and the TM and those kind of things. Those aren't necessary in those situations. Anyway, there's various guidelines there. Also, this is also something we'd like everyone to understand. There are some restricted logos that the university uses in certain circumstances, but not everybody can use them. The presidential seal is one. This is the official logo that's you might recognize from years past. This is only used in presidential sort of situations. So in the inauguration it was used. I think it's on diplomas, if I'm not mistaken. But otherwise, we don't use that. And the president has to officially authorize any use of that logo. So if you want that, you have to talk to him. But actually, we'd prefer you talk to us, and we'll go to him. But actually, we'll probably tell you no. But if you really push, maybe we'll ask him. And then there's what we call the Royal Collection, and these are throwback logos. So the one on the left there we call the Beet Digger. He's reaching down in the view to dig out, or Gopher Digger. Anyway. That logo, these others, these are restricted only for use on merchandise, and it's part of the particular royal flashback sort of collection thing. So these we should not be using on websites, other places like that. And again, for information on using these, the Licensing and Trademarks Office can guide you on that. But generally, it's just for merchandise. So these are the pages that everybody's going to want to go to, but there are other good things on here too. Color. Is good to look at as well. Navy, royal, and white are all three official BYU colors. Navy is primarily, Navy is used for everything. Royal is really only used for athletic sorts of purposes or auxiliaries. Royal should never be used with the official academic marks. Only Navy should be Navy and white for the official academic marks. Then there's all the typefaces we talked about, Requiem and Vitesse, and then these two web fonts. And then we have some other recommended typefaces that work well with the BYU identity system that you can download, including a couple of free Google fonts. So these three here are Google fonts that we think pair well with the identity program. Gotham and Forza are Heffler fonts that you would need to purchase. And again, Whitney and Sentinel, those are part of the templates. Let's see, other parts of the guidelines, licensing and trademarks. Whenever you're creating a shirt or a mug or anything like that, you really need to go through the Licensing and Trademark Office to have approval for how you're using it. Web and social, this is where eventually we'll have the web templates. Joe and Rob and others are working right now on revising the templates. And eventually when that's done and the web style is done, that will be hosted here as well. But that's in process right now. There's some social media guidelines here. And then my favorite, the editorial guidelines. So how to spell varsity theater and all those sorts of wonderful things are in this section of the page. And then relevant policies. And this is one of the things that I've often thought we really needed somewhere. There are a lot of policies that we as campus communicators need to be aware of, but they're kind of hidden. So we made these links. These are all on the university policy page, so you have to log in to see them. But these are all policies that might be helpful for those who are communicating on behalf of the university. So those are some of the things that are part of the site. Again, we're waiting approval on the text items, but hopefully that will come soon. And then we'll launch this in the beta form and invite everybody to give feedback and help us refine it, and hopefully have final thing out in a couple of months for everybody to use. But in the beta form, all the logos will be available for download and everything, so you can start using it that way. Any questions? Yes?
So with the Royal being in the official recognized color scheme
Yes.
now, you said don't put Royal in logos, but any discussion or thoughts on using that in websites?
I think it would be fine in websites, likely. We're still figuring this out. As it was articulated to me, yeah, sure. And I think as a secondary logo, certainly, the more official academic themes should not be royal. But royal can be probably an accent color, certainly on those kind of pages. And there are lighter blues that also work well, that pair really well with navy. The royal is a little bit close to navy sometimes, so if you want the two together, it might be a little bit lighter for what you would want. But primarily, right now, the royal has been defined for use in athletic and then auxiliary sorts of things. So bookstore and, I don't know, can't think right now of other auxiliaries, but those kind of
Outward facing stuff.
yeah, and less academic stuff. Yeah. Yes.
So kind of along with the theming people are developing, is there going to be some sort of like a BYU approved color palette that web developers can use that, you know, reflects the BYU kind of brand? So different shades of the navy blue or the royal, or to use as accents, things like that. Is there going to be a palette of that kind available?
I anticipate so. Certainly for the web. Right now there is a palette, and I think that will probably be revised. Rob, any guidance on that? And then for non-web purposes, we also want to add some secondary colors. Right now we just have the three primary, but we're working on getting some secondary colors added as well. So yes, there will be a broader palette of some form at some point. Yeah, please.
You said we need to log into policy to see the policies.
Yeah.
Is there any restriction on that, or is it just anyone with a net?
The net ID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone who can see the policies right now, if you go through My BYU and you can see university policies, then you would be able to see them. Does everybody have access to those policies if you have a net ID?
Yeah, if you log in.
So alumni who are
I don't know
very
that
students
page,
could
but
see
yeah,
it?
if you log in with your through CAS on the page.
Right.
Some of the policies on policy.byu.edu are intentionally left open to the public, but a lot of them that are
Right.
internally focused to employees are walled off to employees.
Yeah. So it just takes you to this policy portion of the site that already exists. And we haven't messed with the permissions there. They are what they are. Yeah.
And on the logos, do you have a logo that just has Brigham Young University all in one line, SBU?
In one line, in the academic version or the collegiate?
Academic.
There's this one right here that we use a lot on web, but I don't think that's actually on here as a downloadable option. It's not. But perhaps we should make it because we use it.
Indeed.
Okay?
Otherwise, I'm stuck with editing one. You just
Right.
said that was against the rules.
Right. Thank you for asking. Good. That's a good comment. We'll work on getting that one available. Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, Rob.
It might be good to have like a slab, so you have the test, but it might be nice to have a Google font that's a slab that you guys would recommend.
Good. Yeah, I think the Google fonts we have right now are sans, right? Or are they? There's a serif, but not a slab serif.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good feedback. Good, thank you. Any other thoughts? Any questions or anything? Rob or Joe, anything else you want to say about templates?
They're coming.
Okay.
And if you have any interest in shaping them, and even some people we've heard say, well, I don't want to participate on any of the committees because I have nothing to contribute, but if it's a simple matter of feedback and ideas, whether or not you can technically execute those ideas, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like to reiterate that, in one of our sessions yesterday, someone had commented, well, I'm not a designer, I'm not a developer, and that's okay because we are doing this as a community effort, and so we do want to know what people's use cases are, how they see their websites or things their websites do, so we can account for some of that stuff, both from a design perspective and a development perspective.
Okay. Yes, sure.
Yes, I just want to say, if you guys do want to get involved in this group, or just go, even if you don't have a ton that you think you can contribute, you'll probably have ideas, or you'll want to, say how you use it or what you think. If you want to get involved in this group, to the web.byu.edu, and the most recent post is about the community working groups, and you can go click on the ability to sign up.
Yeah, even if you just want to get emails on what's going on.
Comment over here?
So where's our candy?
There's candy out there. There's some Y branded mint, I think, right out there. Official BYU branded. Great, thank you very much. As we all do this together, our goal is to help build this brand, right? Think of how you feel when you come back to campus after you've been away and you see that Y on the mountain. And what that represents to you, and what that represents to hundreds of thousands of people who've been here as students. We hope it represents good things to them, right? And that's what we want to have happen through our branding efforts. We want to strengthen the power of that image to influence the world for good. And as we work together, hopefully we can accomplish that. Thank you very much.